My grandfather used to say, the only thing that's wrong with Mexico is that it's run by Mexicans. Welcome to Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and always with me is my beautiful wife, Kimberly McNabb. Now, let me go ahead and preface this. My grandfather was married to a South American Latina woman, so he was not talking about race. He was talking about the unique corruption that Mexican officials have and the relationship to the drug cartels. Okay. So, over the weekend, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obidar said during a 60 Minutes interview that the surge of migrants crossing into the United States will continue unless President Biden and his administration comply with his demands. And Obidar has called on the U.S. to send $20 billion a year to Latin American countries.
Is he the Mexican president or all of Latin America?
Yeah, it seems like he's grabbing the whole southern hemisphere for himself to be their negotiator. He's saying that we need to lift sanctions on communist Venezuela, and he is wanting the embargo of Cuba to be lifted, again, another communist country. And he wants to grant work visas for 10 million Hispanics. So what that's going to do is drive more people to do migration.
Yeah, because they're going to be like, hey, I'm going to get legalized.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I can send home remittances.
Well, it's funny you said that because he also wants to legalize millions of Hispanics who have worked and lived in the United States for at least the past decade. So that's going to be amnesty. And Mexican officials said complying would help the U.S. show it really wanted to address the root causes of migration.
No, I would say it's because Biden is weak. I mean, $20 billion a year won't cure his weakness.
No.
But it would just propel the cartels. I mean, come on, you put more sugar on the table, ants are going to come.
Right. I mean, under the Trump administration, we had
incentive structure.
We had the most the most secure border that has ever happened, and it was without paying $20 billion a year to South America.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that money would be better spent on a wall and remind Mexico that the trade deficit in 2022 was $131 billion. So I think it's a little unwise to push your major trade partner around. I mean, like someone who's already importing more of your stuff, like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
don't insult the customer.
The trade balance is definitely uneven. Mexico is benefiting much better than the United States is on trade. And so I would think that he would want to be more participatory in having, a pleased northern neighbor of which he benefits on trade.
Yeah, I mean, because President Biden could do tariffs or something to, not allow that anymore. But, I just don't think he's interested. One, whether we pay or not, he's not interested in helping the United States with migration because it benefits Mexico.
Right.
I mean, per NPR in 2021, $50 billion and there were $50 billion in remittances to Mexico. I would say that's you're benefiting from migration. Also, per News Nation, smugglers in Mexico made at least $6 billion in 2021. Migrants spend more money, like they spend money coming through, because they don't just land in Mexico and, it's a full package guarantee that the cartels are going to send you across the border. I mean, you got to pay for housing, you got to pay for food. These little villages that they pass through sell maps. So it is pumping money into the local economy. And if the cartels have more money to spend, well, then they're going to buy stuff in the community as well. So,
right. So, I mean, all the taxes and things like that. So it's not like migrants show up at the U.S. border.
And they just walk through and never
magically
touch anything.
Appearing, a half a mile from the Mexico-U.S. border. They're going through the south of Mexico and through the entirety of Mexico.
Yeah, they're buying bus passes and documents and whatnot. So they're spending money in the economy. Also, he personally benefits from drug money. Yeah, The Hill reports that ProPublica, Insight Crime, and Deutsche Welle looked into previous allegations that the president's aides got millions from drug cartels in 2006 for a promise of lax law enforcement if elected. But before losing his second election in 2011, and after U.S. officials in Mexico were informed, all of a sudden an investigation was pulled.
Magic.
So the president, he's upset that these reports are there since they're sourced to U.S. officials. And accusations of bribery probably explains why he wants $20 billion a year for his poor hurt feelings.
Yeah, I mean, this just has wrong written all over it. So he's advocating for socialist and communist countries that oppress their citizens to have embargoes lifted. You have, money going to pay people to stay there. And if you think that money is going to go directly to the people to keep them there, you are sadly mistaken. That's going to go into government palms. It's going to go into the palms of officials, and they're going to be able to retire on a Swiss bank account.
I promise you, my immigration would not go down.
Yeah, it wouldn't go down.
One person.
It wouldn't go down.
Not a chance.
Because I mean, as I said earlier, under the Trump administration, we had the most secure border without paying $20 billion a year. So why would $20 billion a year fix it? It wouldn't. I mean, really, it would be borrowing money, which the United States government does because the deficit, borrowing money and then giving that money to South America.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, that is just I can't even describe how stupid this would be. And what guarantees does the Mexican president say that is going to happen? I mean,
you're going to give us a number like, okay, I will put it in writing that it's going to be 20% less than it was in 2022 or 2023. Like,
I mean, how would you do that?
I'm sure they'd find a way to fudge those numbers anyway.
I mean, he had a big complaint saying that he would not accept illegal immigrants back from Texas due to the SB4. And so he's like, look, the border's going to be closed and we're not going to take these people back because this would disrupt things. But they were just in Mexico and they got there at the south and walked or rode buses all the way through the country. So
there are these things called parachutes.
Yeah. I mean,
airdrop.
I just, I'm just sad that it has come to this where the Mexican president is dictating or attempting to dictate U.S. policy.
Yeah.
I mean,
when you're weak and you have no authority, guess what? Inmates are going to run to the asylum.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, we saw this and it kind of outraged us. It made us, scratch our head, but also just talk about how ridiculous this is.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to bring this to your attention. So thank you so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast. Please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in. Are we normalizing domestic abuse? Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and with me as always is my loving husband, Barrett McNabb. There are a number of videos on TikTok with young women claiming that they were randomly punched by men that they did not know on the street, all in the middle of the day, and mostly white women. Let's watch some videos.
You guys, I was literally just walking, and a man came up and punched me in the face. Oh my God, it hurts so bad. I can't even talk. Literally, I fell to the ground, and now this giant goose egg is forming, and I'm like, oh my God, it looks so crazy.
I mean, let's take a look at another one.
So I just got punched in the face walking home. I was literally leaving class. I turned the corner and I was looking down and I was looking at my phone and texting, and then out of nowhere, this man just came up and hit me in the face. I'm actually in shock right now. I'm just walking home because what else do you do? But I just texted my friends being hi, I just got punched in the face. And then they sent me a TikTok of this other girl in New York who got punched in the face, and she was looking at her phone. And I don't know if this is a thing that's going around, but I guess if you're in New York right now and you're walking while looking at your phone, maybe don't do that. Maybe head on a swivel, I guess we're going to be super aware of our surroundings.
Yeah, that's good advice. But I mean,
she's recording and walking down the street at the same time.
Exactly. But, there are a number of theories that people are talking about. Is this a gang initiation, which, goes to the broken windows theory of having lax laws and allowing minor crimes to go unpunished makes people escalate some of the other more serious crimes. And, so there's this no bail that people are just getting released on their own recognizance, and there's no penalties. So, I mean, it could be something that because they know they can get away with it, that's why they're doing it.
Well, also, with increased illegal immigrants coming into the city, they don't really fit in or have a place. And so oftentimes when young men, as we've talked many times, most of these people coming over look to be about, gang age men. And so they are probably looking for a place of belonging. So if it is related to gangs, then it's some sort of initiation that would make sense, because that's why most people join gangs to begin with. Now, I believe it was this last one that we watched. One woman said it happened next to a recovery center, meaning like for mental health or drugs. And if you're on drugs or if you have mental issues, you're not going to do things that normal people wouldn't do. And so, of course, punching someone in the head is something normal people don't do.
Right. This is just a a huge problem, because I see an escalation. We don't have this video, but the New York Post reported that a 57-year-old woman was knocked out so hard that it broke her jaw.
And I think knocked out 3 of her teeth too. And she's older, so it's not just young women. So if you're older or something, you may think, well, I'm too old for that.
Well, the person was arrested, but the guy had multiple arrests, including attacking a cop. But again, it goes to this theory of low bail or no bail. He was let go even though he assaulted a police officer. It's just absolutely amazing. We have another video here as well, and I want to talk about this because it seems as though she is with her coworkers.
Another woman and 2 guys.
Yeah.
So I have fallen victim to.
You can see a giant knot on her head.
The men in New York City are lifting an elbow or trying to punch innocent girls on the street. Except I wasn't on my phone. I was with my coworkers.
Yeah, we were just talking.
Walking in Times Square. Yeah. So be safe.
All right, so here's a problem that I have with this is obviously she was with male coworkers and they're laughing about it, but they didn't do anything. I'll be honest, if somebody hit my wife in the middle of the street, people would have to pull me off of him. I would pummel the guy so badly, and I think the reason that people are not doing this is just this supposed toxic masculinity is bad, and therefore you're not supposed to come to the aid of a woman.
Well, I think there are different factors here. We've created this generation of men, these feckless men, screaming toxic masculinity at them, which really exposes toxic feminazi to me. But you can't expect people to do the right thing when there's a deterrence for the right instructive and incentive structures there. Like you demonize someone all the time. You can't expect them to help you. Like you make fun of your classmates in school. They're not going to help you when you spill your stuff all over out of your book bag. They're not going to help you. They don't like you because you demonize them. And you can't constantly reward criminals and punish good people when they do the right thing. They're not going to want to do the right thing. And then just to know that the criminals are going to be let out 2 hours later.
Right.
So the deterrent structures are all wrong. The incentive structures are all wrong.
When we talk about Penny and his defense of women and children and other passengers on a subway train, and he unfortunately did killed the person, but it wasn't intentional.
And he had like two people helping him.
People were helping him, right? And so, but he stepped up, and a New York City councilwoman was just absolutely going off the rails, demonizing Penny. But then in a turn of the script, here she is. She's talking about why aren't men stepping up to help women?
Because you put them in jail.
Because the men who step up get thrown in jail. And so it makes it, well, I didn't see it. I'm not going to step up because I don't want to get prosecuted for defense of a third person.
Yes, but those two men are like being very casual.
Yeah, they're laughing.
Well, actually, everyone's being shockingly casual, but yeah, the men, they're not upset. And so, there's all these videos on YouTube about how women don't want to have kids. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, some of us, we're like 13 years old, and I'm like, I want a bunch of kids. I want 16 kids, blah, blah, blah. Some women are programmed that way, but then there are other women who don't really feel that drive.
Right.
And, you could blame it on, society, nurture, nature, or whatever. But I think also some of it is you're meeting these weak men that, yes, women have partly created, but it's not exactly inspiring, because to become a mother is really hard. You do make a lot of sacrifices. It is a lot of work. And so for most of us, we do need a little inspiration to do it. And so if you don't meet the right man and you're not already like programmed that way to want to have kids, of course you're not going to want to have kids. Like I wasn't that way until we got married. Then I'm like, okay, this could, this is a good thing. Like someone else I want, to be replicated and put out into the world. And I believe it was the actress from Big Bang Theory, Kylie Coco is her name.
Okay.
I read an article where she was like, I didn't really want kids, but then I met my husband, and I was like, I want more of this man put out into the world. And so,
yeah, well, a lot of the
gotta be inspired sometimes.
A lot of the comments in these videos are that the women should have been going to the police instead of filming TikTok. And there are a number of women that have gone to the police and filed police reports. But it's important to do that because if it's unreported, then it doesn't get thrown into statistics to show that crime is going up or going down.
People making the policies are the ones that are making this. They're reading the statistics. So if you downplay the statistics, then sorry, they're dumb enough as it is when things are in their face.
Exactly. But here's a woman that was really brave. Her video is really long. It's about 3.5 minutes. And because we don't want to get a copyright strike, we're not going to play a full 3-minute video. But she was punched in the face. I'll sum up her story. She was punched in the face, and the man kept coming after her until finally some bystanders did kind of create a wall to allow her to maneuver away. But he kept looking like he was going to continuously punch her. Now, she was brave enough. She did wind up filing a police report, but she was brave enough to go back and then take a photograph of the guy. And so we're just going to jump in at the part where she's talking about where she took a photograph. And she had heard about a number of these incidences happening, and she just wanted to know if it was the same person. So let's take just a real quick look.
Here's the photo of the man that attacked me today when I was in Chelsea in Manhattan. This is the man right here that attacked me today. He's wearing a black puffer coat. There's some sort of like blue lining in the hood, maybe a sweatshirt or something. He's clearly wearing something underneath the coat, which is he has this hood up. He had the light color jeans and then also these pretty distinctive white shoes with this orange stripe on them. More close-up view. You can see kind of the angle of his face here. Unfortunately, I didn't get any photos with him actually looking at me or the camera, but please, if you know this person, please reach out to me or to the NYPD. Itself was pretty horrible, getting attacked in the middle of the day, in the middle of public with people all around, a situation where I genuinely felt pretty safe. But arguably what made it even worse was how somebody responded. I ran over to some cops that were crossing the street, and I yelled for them. I yelled for help. And these police officers turned around. I explained the situation to them. My adrenaline's still rushing. You know, I can see the man standing on the street. He's walking down the street, and I'm explaining what happened. And these cops turn to me and they say, "Unfortunately, ma'am, we're traffic cops, so we can't do anything to help you."
Well, that's great.
Couldn't they have like held him there until
They
normal cops got there or something?
They could have probably detained him and said, "Sir, you know, we're going to go ahead and detain you so that you don't have freedom of movement until we can get another officer here." They probably could have done that.
Yeah.
Because that would have been reasonable suspicion. You have a person that's identifying the crime and is clearly being a witness. So there's definitely a reasonable suspicion to detain the person. You know, and that's disheartening. So this woman is not a native New Yorker. She apparently only got to New York City a couple of months ago, and she is from Minnesota. So this is, you know, welcome to the Big Apple type of thing.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, you know, this is just, you know, this is a problem. This is a real big problem, and it's not a problem because obviously these people are not dead. They are not in the hospital. Now, the one woman with the broken jaw, she was in the hospital, but still, the problem is it's going to you will see an escalation if there are not prosecutions for this. You will see an escalation.
People will keep doing what you let them get away with, and I understand that it's you know, not exactly inspired, you know, hopeful to go file a police report and with the idea that they're going to be let go, you know, an hour later. But you have to think you're in a country where, you know, you speak the language, and, you know, women are oftentimes believed because some people aren't so lucky when they get attacked.
Yes.
So when we were in Morocco, which was 11 years ago, so Barrett often went to other countries for a business trip. I went to the park, and I was walking back, and about 50 feet from the place where we lived, I'm walking, and then all of a sudden I'm on the ground. And I'm like, well, okay, the sidewalk sucks. What happened? And I look up, and there are two boys, 17 or so, in polo sweaters, pulling on my exercise armband, and I'm being dragged on the ground. And, you know, I don't speak Arabic. I barely speak any French. And so I just start saying, m'aidez, you know, like, please, s'il vous plaît, no. And finally, the Velcro from the band rips, and they take off. And I take off after them.
Like a good Georgia girl.
Yes. But they had the keys to the house, and you were away, and no one from the embassy lived anywhere near us. So I had to get the keys. And so I'm running after them, and then they turn onto a wider street. I'm screaming bloody murder, m'aidez. And, you know, people are coming out onto the street because they hear me screaming so loudly. And, you know, these kids soccer is so huge over there. They play soccer from the time they're, you know, a year and a half. And so, of course, they can run faster than I can. Any 17-year-old boy can. And so they just take off. And when I see all these people coming out from the woodwork, I'm like, okay, I have zero chance of catching up to them. Like, maybe someone could talk to me or something. I don't know. And so I have like 20 people around me. I don't speak the language. But fortunately, one person stepped up that could speak English. And so I'm talking to them for a few minutes about what happened. And then a couple minutes later, a businessman in a car pulls up next to me, says he saw what happened, followed the boys. They ran past a Moroccan police van. The businessman pointed them out to the policeman and described what happened, and the policemen were able to get the two boys. And so, you know, it's kind of risky knowing what had just happened to me. But I got in the car with the Moroccan businessman. You know, he's dressed very well, and he drove me to the police station. It is nothing like Law and Order SVU. It looks more like a house, and and like I got out of the car, I turn, and like right there at the entrance of the building are the two boys, and the police have my iPod, and you know, I had ordered like a custom color and ordered it like 6 years before that as a reward for graduating college to myself, and so it was definitely mine, and so they asked me, you know, is this yours? And I said yes, and then of course the boys are like, and we're like this close. The police grab one of the boys' book bags and start hurling it, like beating the kid with it. And I was like, oh, I'm like, I could feel the wind from this book bag just being used to hit this kid.
You're not in America right now.
No. And so then I spend at least an hour and a half. Thank goodness for this businessman, because he was able to translate, you know, just going over and over and over what happened. And, you know, I got in touch with someone from the embassy. And so finally they sent someone from the embassy to help, you know, translate, going over and again and again and again. And then finally I was allowed to leave. So it was about 3 hours just rehashing the same story.
Right.
And then, you know, I got home because I got my keys back, and I don't want to be in the house. Unfortunately, the neighbors came back, so I spent some time with them, and we got like the cheapest cell service imaginable in Morocco. And so like I had a hard time getting an email to Barrett to tell them what happened. And it was a rough time sleeping until you got home.
Right. Well, I
just kept reliving it over and over.
Well,
again.
yeah, and completely understandable. So I was in Saudi Arabia on a training, and you know, I got a text message that you had been attacked, and but that was it, and I was so panicked. Like, you know, attacked? Is she in the hospital? Is she, you know, severely injured?
The original email, because, you know, the cell service sucked too much for text.
Right.
Was like this long, and then it kept dropping, and so I'd have to retype it, and it just gets shorter and shorter and shorter.
Right. So I'm in kind of this panic because I had lost my cell phone in UAE on the previous portion of the trip, and you know, I had to use you know, a colleague's government cell phone, and so yeah, I was in the dark, and I was worried sick. Because I was in Saudi Arabia, you were in Morocco, so half a world apart, and it was a long flight to get back with multiple
I think
stops.
you got back at like 4 a.m.
Right.
And you know, this is 2 days later, and later that morning, the house that the embassy had rented for us had these little cameras by the outer wall of the house. And so I look at it, and there are like four men speaking this really awkward English. And I'm like, I think this has something to do with, you know, 2 days ago. And I knew from my experience at the police department, you know, being a woman, of course, I knew that from the previous year of being there, but still being a woman, you're not going to be believed. So I go upstairs, I wake Barrett up. I'm like, Barrett, this has to be related to the other day. Can you please talk to them? So Barrett he's talking to the men at the gate. And
yeah, so I go outside.
I'm behind the door listening, and they tell Barrett, oh, well, these two boys, you know, they're going to be sent to jail, and it'll ruin their lives if you say that they did this to her. And I'm like, all they had to do was leave me alone. They were dressed better than I was, and
right.
I had no money. And the boy's excuse was, well, rich Americans just threw their iPods away.
Right. So in talking to the men, they were the boys' teachers. And again, when we say boys, they were 17, 18 years old, right?
Yes.
So they're young men, to be perfectly clear. And so they did. They said, look, you and your wife are ruining the lives of these boys. And I said, no. It had been one thing if you had grabbed the iPod out of my wife's hand and took off, but you shoved my wife to the ground and you drug her on the ground by the iPod and by her hair.
And my arm was black and blue for several weeks.
I said, you could only imagine what was going to go through her mind as she's being drugged towards some bushes. And I said, so no, we will be prosecuting to the fullest extent of the law. And they actually got 6 months in jail, but because it was two of them, they got a gang modifier, and their sentence was doubled to a year in prison in a Moroccan jail. So, I have zero sympathy for them.
Yeah, and seeing things like this, with people getting out and, just this whole upside down incentive structure where criminals get rewarded reminds me of stuff that goes on overseas. And this is not what America is supposed to be. And so, just be grateful, women, ladies, that you live in America, not just where you speak the language, but also you don't need a male witness for you to be believed, and someone from the embassy to be believed, and your husband testifying for you to be believed.
Right.
So, yeah, please go to the cops. Yeah,
absolutely. And just over the years, I say this again and again, but you are extremely brave. Again, what's a good Georgia girl do when she gets shoved down by two men? She gets up, dusts herself off, and takes off after him. And so absolutely brave for you, brave for the whole ordeal. I was, obviously very sad that I was on this business trip, and just, to go from Saudi Arabia back over to Morocco took forever. But I was in a tizzy the whole time, worried about my wife. But you did the right thing. You talked to the police, and we went through the prosecutor. Well, I always found it, discovery, like how did they find our address? Well, it turns out that the defense lawyer got our file because discovery is different over in Morocco than in the United States.
Yeah, that was really scary.
And it had our home address.
Knowing where we lived, so I was afraid to leave for a while.
It was beyond scary. But it's super important to report this stuff to the police because there are city officials in New York that are saying, hey, these TikToks are kind of belying the fact that New York is a very safe city, and it seems because there's a rash of these that this is going on. Well, from the statistics of New York City Police, the felony assaults are up 3% over the prior year, and misdemeanor assaults are up by 10% over the same period. And this is without people reporting. So this is just,
And it, there's only one of you. It only has to happen to you.
Exactly. So please stay vigilant. One of the things that I could recommend is that you definitely have situational awareness. And I know a lot of these women were looking at their phone. I know it's common to look at your phone as you're walking, but really you need to have your head on a swivel. I highly recommend that you not have earbuds in so that you can't hear anything. You've just completely got yourself in this cocoon. Now, first of all, it's not your fault. So even if you have all of these things going on, it's not your fault that you got punched. You should be able to be in your own bubble, in your own world, with sight and sound completely immersed in whatever you're listening to or whatever, and go about your business and be safe. That should happen. But my recommendation is that you have situational awareness, that every once in a while, turn around and look behind you. Turn around and look behind you. If you feel uneasy that there's somebody following you, I know there's a lot of stoops. Just like go sit down on some steps or kind of lean against a guardrail, on the fences that you see in these brownstones and things like that. And then just immediately, look behind you. And if somebody is following you, it becomes beyond awkward because they either have to stop and do the same thing that you're doing and just, immediately, kind of trip over themselves as you stop. They have to stop because you looked at them, or they have to pass you by. and keep on going so that it doesn't look like they're following you. So just please be vigilant. If you do have a male companion with you, they should be looking around as well. And it's nice to have, wonderful conversations and go through Times Square and things like that. But with these type of things on the rise is just a suggestion that you keep your head on a swivel, have situational awareness.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this. We want to, make sure that we get it out to as many people as possible. And please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in. So, is the LGBT cosine tangent OPP divided by sine soup getting more letters? Yeah. NAMBLA. And in case you're a good soul and you don't know what that means, North American Man-Boy Love Association. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and with me is my loving husband, Barrett McNabb.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at this video. So scholars are now saying that pedophilia is now a sexual orientation, and it should be accepted by society. So let's go ahead and listen to this.
Most of us feel discomfort when we think about pedophiles. But just like pedophiles, we are not responsible for our feelings. We do not choose them. But we are responsible for our actions. And we must make a decision. It is in our responsibility to reflect and to overcome our negative feelings about pedophiles and to treat them with the same respect we treat other people with. We should accept that pedophiles are people who have not chosen their sexuality and who, unlike most of us, will never be able to live it out freely if they want to lead an upright life.
We're going to go ahead and stop it here. I don't think we need to go too much further. But effectively, you heard her. She says that we need to put aside our prejudices on the sexual orientation for pedophiles.
There's so much to unwrap here. We're not responsible for our feelings, responsible for actions. No, our feelings are called a moral compass.
Right.
Okay, a moral compass. Like, we are supposed to protect the most vulnerable in society, and I would think kids would fit that. And she talks about, acting, the poor pedophiles. She's playing this music, this background music. It sounds like a Sarah McLachlan, Wings of the Angel type of song for,
right.
The SPCA commercial. Right. That's what it sounds like. No, I'm not feeling sorry for
abused dogs
anybody
and
here.
The cats. Yeah.
You're talking about,
and this is a TED Talk. You can see in the background, it's a TED Talk. So I mean, this is like legitimate. These people are going. They probably heard a tech conference speaker right before this.
Oh, there's just so much to unpack here. No. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm getting very
emotional. Per the Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center, 70 to 80% of sexual abuse survivors report excessive drug and alcohol use.
They can have as many as 400 victims in their lifetimes. That's 400 children for one pedophile. And, approximately 40% of sex offenders report sexual abuse as children themselves. So you're creating the cycle where these kids, it's not just a one and done type of thing. Like, they can go on and do it to other kids and just on and on and on and on. And I'm sorry, but we cannot accept this. I mean, if they want to, be able to talk about it, hire a really good therapist. Okay.
Right.
This is not supposed to be acceptable at all.
No, I completely agree.
This is one of those things in society where if we let this slide, God's going to come down and be like, what the?
Right. Well, I mean, that's the problem with progressives and progress is, again, we keep adding to the acronym.
Yeah, there's obviously no limit to where they want to progress to. They're going to progress our society off a cliff.
Right.
And, are we watching more?
Yeah, we'll watch a little bit more.
We should accept that pedophilia is a sexual preference.
Statistics indicate that there will be 1 or 2 of you who are struggling with some form of pedophilic interest. These people can't talk about their feelings because they know that they will be hated for it. I truly do believe that every person is longing for love at some point in their life. And what if this love that you really wish for will forever be impossible? That must be a really lonely situation to be in.
So we should feel sorry for them.
From an emotional point of view, I can kind of understand that you would want to eliminate these people from society. However, it doesn't make sense. And that's because we're talking about biology. We're talking about a sexual orientation, something that we simply cannot change. And on top of that, every day, new people are born with the same difficulty. So it's not practical to eliminate these people from society. They haven't done anything wrong.
But they do. I mean, have we not seen in the news that, I don't know what it is with middle school and high school female teachers, but there has just been it seems like one right after another of women that are abusing male children.
Well, I mean, they may have been a victim of sexual abuse themselves because, as we just said, 40% are likely to do it to someone else.
Right.
And, it's not just, their own gender. It could be either one. But, the Bible says that special judgment comes to those who tempt and cause little ones to stumble. You should prefer a millstone tied around their neck and be thrown into the sea. And, and you could interpret little ones, as children, but also anyone who's vulnerable. But, again, children's surely top of the list. The thrust of Jesus's ministry was righting the wrongs done to the disadvantaged and leveling the field for those who are without leverage. And this goes to the heart of pedophilia. It's exploitation and abuse of those who are the least powerful.
Right.
A child is virtually defenseless. I mean, their brain's not fully formed. They haven't formed these defense mechanisms. They haven't fully formed their moral compass. But even they feel weird, even if a grown-up hasn't talked to them about sex. They know what's wrong. And so, we fool ourselves when we think that only weak or ignorant children succumb to these trickeries. And as long as they're predators, all of our children are at risk.
Right.
And the left claims that they want to fight for those without leverage, those who aren't in power. What about the kids? They're not in power.
Right.
These leftists who want kids to be exploited, they're the opposite of what the left claims to care about.
Yeah, that's a big problem that I have as well, is when you look at some of the progressive things that are wanting to be taught in school, to talk about sex, to talk about sexual orientation and things like this. This slowly starts to normalize sex for children.
Yes, and introduce that thought into their brain. Also, the King James version of the scripture, when they use the word offend, whosoever shall offend, and the Greek can be translated to entice to sin or to turn away from those one ought to trust and obey. And if you're a parent who wants to introduce your child to these predators, then I think your children should not trust and obey you anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's news story after news story of parents and mothers attempting to sell their children to somebody else that are 2, 3, and 4 years old, and luckily it's interdicted by police officers, but they're attempting to sell their children into doing this. So the pedophilia, it's not just the pedophile that you have to worry about, but you also have to worry about parents that are participating. They're not pedophiles themselves, but they're willing to participate with their own flesh and blood.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, this just makes me sad.
Yeah. This is just wrong, and if you don't think this is wrong, maybe you should get help. And that with that second woman, they can't talk about it. Yeah, to a therapist, a really good one. But they should be talking to us about it. Right.
No, I definitely agree. But anyway, we saw this and we were pretty outraged, and I hope you are too, and take action. This should not be normalized. Pedophilia should not be just accepted as a sexual orientation. Therefore, it needs to get added to the acronym. There are certain things
because then it'll be okay when they act on it.
But then
it'll be
okay.
Your child.
It'll be that there will be someone to try and rationalize it, and that is where the danger is when somebody tries to rationalize this. So thank you for watching Azimuth Podcast. Please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all of the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.